Action RPGs may be considered more streamlined compared to true RPGs, especially with focus on combat and loot. However, history is rich with titles that offer compelling stories, amazing characters, and great action while still remaining squarely in the RPG camp. So let's take a look at 30 of the best action RPGs of all time. Dragon Slayer. Credited for creating the genre as we know it, Nihon Falcom's Dragon Slayer introduced real-time combat of a hack-and-slash game with the storytelling of RPGs. It's old and probably impossible to find, but is pretty much the foundation for all action RPGs. For that reason, it remains one of the best of all time. XANADU. Not satisfied with shaping an entire genre from scratch, Nihon Falcom brought out Dragon Slayer 2 XANADU, simply referred to as XANADU. Along with the same real-time combat, it introduced character stats, platforming, a karma meter, and item experience. It even had armor that changed your character's look. So many mechanics that we take for granted today were brought about by XANADU, but make no mistake, it is still an incredible action RPG in its own right. Diablo 2. This is where it all began for many an erstwhile looter fan. Diablo 2's dark aesthetic, diverse gameplay options, co-op, and addictive combat loop had players maddeningly clicking long past their breaking point. With mods like Median XL to keep it going, Diablo 2 is still a fun, old-school throwback to a simpler time of looter RPGs. Diablo 3. On the other hand, there's Diablo 3, arguably the game that everyone looks at when thinking about loot drops and quality. With its Reaper of Souls expansion, Diablo 3 delivered a pretty good story with some of the best isometric combat available today. After the story, players can embark on an even deeper grind with greater rifts, adventure mode, bounties, seasonal play, and so much more while creating a nigh unstoppable character. It's not perfect, but Diablo 3 is still one of the best action RPG looters today. Titan Quest. Going back to a more traditional isometric hack-and-slash style of gameplay, Iron Lords' Titan Quest takes place in ancient Greece. Stats and loot tiers are fairly typical, as is the combat, but masteries help mix things up, providing two different class trees for players to level up and effectively build a hybrid class. With a solid campaign, level editor, and plenty of post-launch support, Titan Quest is worth checking out even if it's a little rough around the edges from age. Grim Dawn. What doesn't feel aged is Crate Entertainment's Grim Dawn, a more grim, dark aesthetic akin to Diablo 2 from the team behind Titan Quest. Boasting total freedom, the same awesome mastery system for build diversity, factions to support, and different modes to plow through courtesy of new expansions, Grim Dawn is truly special. Secret of Mana. Spun off from Final Fantasy into its own series, Secret of Mana is a near masterclass in design. The 16-bit visuals look wonderful, and the story is high fantasy at its best as our heroes embark on a quest to revitalize the Mana Sword. The option to play as any member of your party during combat and issuing orders via the ring command system also help make Secret of Mana a standard bearer for the genre. CrossCode. It's interesting to see a game like CrossCode coming along from a relatively unknown studio and offering pretty much everything that Secret of Mana does, except, better. Embarking into cross-worlds with the amnesiac Leah, players travel to different elemental ruins, meeting quirky characters along the way and engaging in fast-paced combat. A meaningful story and tons of memorable content, with more on the way, ensure that CrossCode is only just getting started. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. CD Projekt Red's epic open-world title may boast limited customization and build potential along with serviceable combat. However, it makes up for it with an excellent story, well-crafted side quests, terrific performance, and a gorgeous world to explore. There's plenty of loot to collect along the way as well, with Grandmaster Witcher sets, powerful swords, and much more to make Geralt that much more dangerous. If you haven't played The Witcher 3, it's well worth a look, especially since the Game of the Year edition with both expansions goes on sale often. Dark Souls. From Software's classic became the blueprint for many future action RPG games. The stamina management and combat, memorable boss fights, environmental storytelling, and level design are all amazing facets, even with some rough edges in the latter half of the game. Heck, even the game's handling of lore is still looked upon positively. The formula may have evolved over the years, but the original Dark Souls is still a wonder to behold. Dark Souls 3. After a fairly underwhelming but still fun second title, From Software dipped deep into the nostalgia well with Dark Souls 3. Combat was much faster, and the title featured impeccable boss design, creating some of the toughest encounters in gaming. The aesthetic of Lothric and the lore governing the various ages of fire are also incredible to this day. Dark Souls 3 may not have reinvented the wheel, but it offered an incredible experience for any action RPG fan to die for. Bloodborne. Considered a modern classic, Bloodborne is more than just an awesome combat system. The world of Yharnam is equally enthralling, channeling Lovecraftian aesthetics and lore to provide a maddeningly enjoyable experience. With trick weapons, firearms, insidious environments, and randomly generated chalice dungeons for even more challenges, Bloodborne is one nightmare you won't want to wake up from. Torchlight 2. Often cited as a better alternative to Diablo 2, Torchlight 2 boasts some nice combat and endgame content to go along with the long campaign. The classes on offer may seem limited, but have a good amount of customization in their abilities. The colorful art style may not be for everyone, but the deep endgame and combat can easily drain away dozens of hours. Bastion. Supergiant Games broke phenomenal ground with Bastion, their first title and an incredibly enthralling action RPG overall. Following a world-shattering event called the Cataclysm, Bastion delivered an imaginative universe to go with crisp isometric combat, healthy variety of weapons, and an amazing soundtrack. The narrator holds it all together, and Bastion's lore unravels with a level of class unseen in many games. Dungeon Siege. A rather unexpected title from the mind of Chris Taylor, Dungeon Siege has players traveling to the land of Ebb to defeat hostile forces. The world isn't broken up into parts, functioning as a single environment that's beautiful to behold. Though the combat is still very Diablo-esque, there's a more tactical feel to it, and the numerous quality of life improvements make for a more fun loot game overall. If you can find it for cheap, Dungeon Siege may be worth your time. Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. It has less content than Generations Ultimate, but Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate is still a triumph. It brought about more vertical movement to the franchise while introducing awesome new monsters, apex beasts, the insect glaive, and charge axe, and tons of quests. The tried and true combat is still addictive, and it doesn't hurt that the game is more beginner friendly than its predecessors. Monster Hunter World. If you want the ultimate Monster Hunter experience on console and PC though, Monster Hunter World is tough to beat. With an expanded scope and gorgeous visuals, Monster Hunter World features nuanced level design and incredible encounters against classic monsters like Rathian and Diablos. The combat feels much more fluid, and the sheer depth of each weapon type, even without hunter arts and styles, will keep you busy for a long, long time. Mass Effect 2. After its heavier RPG approach, but before leaning more into third-person shooting, the Mass Effect series struck a good balance in Mass Effect 2. The storytelling was pretty top-notch as players prepare for a suicide mission and must recruit all manner of companions to aid them. The collectors offered some oppressive challenges, and the sheer range of aggressive tactics that players could employ, coupled with strong emphasis on combos, made combat a blast. Kingdom Hearts 2. The story of Kingdom Hearts was already pretty complicated before the second game arrived. That being said, Kingdom Hearts 2 was the best crossover between Disney and Final Fantasy characters that could have happened. The combat system underwent some major changes with team-up attacks, drive forms, and better responsiveness overall. Even if Kingdom Hearts 3 was higher budget and more cathartic for fans, Kingdom Hearts 2 is still the best in the series. Nioh. While everyone else was busy copying Dark Souls and putting their own twists on the formula, Nioh sought to do more. It took the loot grinding aspect of Diablo 3, combined it with the combat of Dark Souls, inserted various techniques akin to Ninja Gaiden, and used a feudal Japan setting teeming with monsters. Even without the richness of From Software's environments, Nioh still provided a bloody good and difficult time. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Yes, the combat is fairly wonky and there are still plenty of bugs after all of these years, but The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim is a monumental achievement all the same. At the time, such a massive world, teeming with so many different quests, NPCs, dungeons, weapons, plotlines, and secrets, that too with such gorgeous visuals, was hard to ignore. Even today, Skyrim's mod support and sheer longevity help ensure its place in the action RPG pantheon. Deus Ex. It's hard to forget just how revolutionary the first Deus Ex was. Utilizing System Shock's FPS and RPG system, Deus Ex provided unprecedented choice for how players could approach missions. The ability to customize and augment one's build, creating a pure stealth, combat, or hacker character to exploit so many different solutions was fascinating. Of course, the conspiracy-laden story and universe of Deus Ex was pretty fun to explore in its own right. Deus Ex Human Revolution. Deus Ex Human Revolution took much of the framework from the first game and added a cover system, better combat, even more choices, and of course, stylish executions. The intriguing story and atmosphere set up the future games pretty well, but just getting out and taking in all of the details was an experience unto itself. If you have a hankering for some immersive sim/action RPG goodness, Deus Ex Human Revolution should work. Path of Exile. One of the best free-to-play games available, Grinding Gear Games' Path of Exile started out as a love letter to the genre from Diablo 2 fans. It's since evolved into an addictive action RPG with hundreds of builds, new challenge leagues with mechanics like time traveling, and an endless dungeon. An endgame of maps leading to a powerful boss, the list just goes on. Play through the story or pour thousands of hours into its atlas, Path of Exile has something for every action RPG fan. Vagrant Story. On the surface, Vagrant Story is an action RPG. However, deep down, it's a political drama with a deeply complex combat system. Our hero, Ashley Riot, can target specific parts of his enemies, unleashing powerful attacks that must be timed correctly for maximum effectiveness. Dozens of other mechanics like break arts, chains, magic, the risk system, and much more also play a role in making Vagrant Stories' gameplay more tactical. Suffice it to say, if you're looking for more than your average hack and slash, this is the place to be. Fable 2. Bigger, better, and more fleshed out than its predecessor, Fable 2 expands on Lionhead's original vision in numerous ways. Characters can be morphed based on their alignment and the level of corruption, take on jobs to earn money, build relationships, and start families, among other things. Even if combat isn't the biggest highlight, it's still enjoyable and rounds out the experience in a solid way. Ys 8, Lacrimosa of Dana. The Ys series is renowned for its addictive gameplay and boss battles, not to mention the rich lore. Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana brings all of that into a stunning 3D experience with a massive world to explore and new characters to interact with. It doesn't stray too far from its predecessors in terms of gathering materials, upgrading items, and leveling up to venture further into the story, but really, it doesn't have to. Dragon's Dogma: Dark Arisen. On a quest to slay a dragon as the Arisen, players explore a massive world with the help of AI pawns. An entire system dedicated to sharing pawns with other players is in place, allowing you to pick up some rather odd teammates. Nevertheless, with its excellent combat and customization and intriguing story, Dragon's Dogma: Dark Arisen is a compelling action RPG to dive into. Illusion of Gaia. Quintet's Illusion of Gaia is a very underrated title, offering a simple combat loop in a detailed world. On top of its expansive story, the title also introduces some very interesting mechanics. There's no currency or equipment, but you receive upgrades in the form of jewels when clearing rooms of enemies. With each character having unique abilities for exploration and different levels of strength, Illusion of Gaia can be very unconventional, but still rewarding to play. ODIN Sphere LEIFTHRASIR. Vanillaware isn't one to stick to the traditional action RPG experience, and ODIN Sphere proved that with its side-scrolling gameplay, beat-em-up style combat, and unorthodox presentation. This ODIN Sphere released in 2016, improving an already great game with better visuals, redesigned game systems, and more stages. It's truly unlike anything out there and totally worth checking out. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.